Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel We Fade to Grey. And I'm just going for an evening walk. I've been in the house most of the day, so just going to get some fresh air before it gets too late. Just an update on the job situation. No update at all on the Civil Service Jobs website. Checked again this morning and just says application received. So obviously taking the time and just tumbleweed from any of the agencies that I usually speak to about contract work. Nothing at all. I think they're having a tougher time finding work as contractors are. The contract market's just dead at the moment, so everyone's a loser. Industry's a loser because they don't have this pool of immediately available talent to help them out when the going gets tough. Contractors aren't getting the work and the agencies aren't getting their fees, so everyone's a loser. So I just wanted to touch on the idea of trying to keep purpose and focus when you're out of work. Because work's a big part of your life, and I guess when you get to your late 50s, my time of life, I'm 56, you have to kind of prepare for the day when you're no longer going to be working, and the main reason that you got out of bed every day, which for most people is work, is no longer there. So it's kind of the age-old question, really, isn't it? When you reach middle age and your later years, it's kind of finding that purpose and replacing the purpose that work gave you with something else. And I definitely feel that now's the time I need to start thinking about that, getting some purpose in my life other than work. Because even when I am working, I don't find work that satisfying, to be honest. It's just purely for material gain. So I think it's a time that I need to start thinking about, finding a purpose in life other than just work. I mean, don't get me wrong. Work isn't my whole life. It never has been my whole life. My family has always been far more important to me than work, and it will continue to be so. But inevitably, work is a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my reason to get out of bed every morning. And at the moment, I don't have that. And sooner rather than later, simply because I'm fast approaching 60, that will be a permanent state of affairs. I won't have a job. So finding purpose without a job in your life is something that I need to think about. And it's something that I touched on in my interview with Nick Mayer when I went over to York at the weekend. Nick retired quite young. Nick retired at I think 44, and he was very fortunate that he was able to retire because he'd sold a business, so he was in a position where he could retire financially. But I think after a couple of years of living the dream and going on holidays and lots of leisure and spending time with his young son, he slowly but surely began to realise that you do need a purpose in life, and when work isn't that purpose anymore, either by choice or by default, you're left with a bit of a void. You have to find something that's going to fill that. And for a lot of people, work is the life, and it's also the social life. Many people have friends through work. Most of their social connections are through work. I think the reality is that once you leave work, unless you were particularly close with your work colleagues, you're not going to see them again. And maybe you weren't as close as you possibly thought you were. I know from experience that from going back to former workplaces, it's amazing how quickly people move on once you've left. You can be there years, and within literally a couple of months, you're forgotten about. Nobody talks about you. Nobody mentions you. New people start. New relationships are built within the office, and you're no longer there, and you're forgotten about. So I think many a time these your work colleagues, your friends at work, are not as permanent as you think they are. They're just simply people who you have a shared workspace with, and that's it. And once that thing that you have in common is no longer there, then the reason for the friendship, evaporates very quickly. So it's important to have things outside of work, and that's kind of the situation I'm in now. And a couple of weeks ago, I recorded a video with Simon Burgess for his podcast Life's Second Act, where he interviews people later in life who are perhaps going through a change, looking for a new direction, and finding repurpose in middle age. And that's something that we explored on the podcast, and it's something that I'm going to explore with Simon myself when I interview him later this week. So Simon's podcast, I think he's interviewed about a dozen people now for his podcast. So I'm hoping that from those interviews that he's conducted on his podcast, he's going to be able to give me some insight from the people that he's spoken to. I think everyone that he's spoken to is a similar age to me. Simon's a similar age to me, so his podcast focuses on the 50s, which, let's be honest, they're a funny old time, the 50s. It's you're not quite old enough to retire, but you're certainly not in the main thrust of life. Working on your career, raising a family, those things are kind of slipping away, and but you still have the energy and the motivation to keep working. You're not ready for retiring in your 50s. I don't think you are anyway. I'm personally not ready for retiring. As I said with Nick at the weekend, I think if you're going to retire, if you're going to choose to retire, there has to be a significant life event that triggers that. For Nick, it was the fact that he was burnt out with his business, and his father had died, and he had a young son who just started primary school, so he wanted to take the opportunity to spend some time with his young son. For me, that significant life event is going to be the arrival of grandchildren. I have two daughters, as you know, both in their early 20s, so I'm hoping that I will be a granddad one day, but that hasn't happened yet, and until that does happen, I don't really feel comfortable with retiring and chucking it all in. I think one of the themes that came out of my meeting with Nick at the weekend was that you very much need something to retire to. Many people think of retirement as retiring from work, but it's also important to have something to retire to. And if you don't have something to retire to, then retirement can very quickly become unsatisfying. Once you've ticked off the bucket list and gone on the cruises and the holidays and played golf, you need to find something else to give purpose to your life. So for me that will be the arrival of grandkids, but you know, for other people it could be something completely different, you know. But you know, you do very much need something to retire to, in my opinion. So I've spoken to some, you know, it's a theme that I'm trying to develop on my channel, really, you know, kind of finding purpose later in life, you know, and that does kind of feed into work. I know my channel is mainly about work and people struggling to find work, but that fits into the whole greater subject of kind of what to do later in life. You know, once you reach a certain point in your life, whether you're working or you're not working, it is definitely a time to kind of like repurpose and refocus. So that kind of fits into, you know, to the subject of you know, of being out of work. And you know, it's easy to think that, you know, work is the most important thing in your life, and it can be, but it shouldn't be the one and only thing in your life that's important. You know, you do need other things, and that's something that, you know, I have explored with Nick when we talked about his decision to retire and when is the right time to retire. And it's something that I'm going to speak with Simon Burgess about when I interview him later this week for his about finding purpose later in life. So yeah, I think it's you know, it's important to find purpose later in life, and you know, plan for retirement, even if you're not planning to retire anytime soon. You know, it may be something that's forced upon you. You know, if you're made redundant or you lose your job and just simply can't find another job, you may find yourself, you know, involuntarily retired. So it's something that we should all be planning for, you know, once we get into our late 50s. So just some thoughts about finding purpose in life, and where to go once you know, once you're no longer working, or the prospects of work, you know, is drying up. It's things to consider. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you had a chance to watch my interview with Nick, and that you get a chance to watch my interview with Simon Burgess later in the week. Yeah, all good stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you shortly. Cheers.